What are the worst SUVs of 2023 that you need to avoid? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Help Corner, where we help you, the consumer, master the process of car buying and car ownership. If you're planning on buying a new SUV in the near future, then this video is for you. I'm going to go through 10 of the absolute worst SUVs that you need to avoid for 2023 in terms of their reliability, cost of ownership, and value for money. So unless you're getting an absolutely unbeatable deal and just plan on leasing it for 3 to 4 years, just skip over these 10 SUVs altogether. And to find out what the absolute worst SUVs are, make sure to stick around until the end of this video. And if you enjoy and get value out of this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I post 2 videos a week, always straight to the point, valuable car buying advice designed to help you, the consumer. So let's start this list off with number 10, which is the Ford Explorer. The Explorer is one of those SUVs that just doesn't excel in any particular area. It doesn't have the nicest interior, the best technology, or the most amount of interior space or cargo space. In fact, as far as 3-row SUVs go, it's pretty tight in that area. And it's also not known for being especially reliable either. The Explorer often comes near the bottom of Consumer Reports' annual reliability study, and the number of complaints from owners is rather high. The most common complaints have to do with the electronics, the 10-speed automatic transmission, and the 4-cylinder Ecoboost engine on the lower trim levels. The reliability of the optional V6 hybrid and V6 Ecoboost does seem to be a little bit better, but that also drives the pricing so high to the point where the Explorer just doesn't make much sense. It's an incredibly expensive SUV for what you're getting, especially when you consider that there are much better alternatives out there for a lower price. So if you want a much better 3-row SUV that offers a hybrid option, that has a better reputation for reliability and just gives you more value for your money, you're better off going with something like the Toyota Highlander instead. And moving on to number 9 on the list, we have the Jeep Cherokee. Much like the Explorer, the Cherokee is an SUV that just doesn't offer very good value for what you're getting. Jeeps are often known for having very ambitious pricing, and the Cherokee can get rather expensive, especially when you start adding on the options. But not only is it an overpriced SUV, but it's just not a very good one either. The V6 engine and 4-cylinder turbo offer decent performance, but they come near the very bottom of the list when it comes to fuel economy. When it comes to the interior space, the technology, and the features that it offers, the Cherokee just lags behind most of its competitors. And the Cherokee is just not known to be an especially reliable vehicle either, coming near the bottom of Consumer Reports' reliability list and having a huge number of complaints from owners. So if you're thinking of buying a compact SUV, just forget about the Cherokee and go for one of its much better rivals instead, like the Subaru Forester or the Toyota RAV4. And next up, in the number 8 spot, we have the Volkswagen Tiguan. The current generation Tiguan was introduced back in 2018, and although it is a decent SUV in terms of its performance, interior space, and features, it's just not a very competitive or good SUV to buy. For one thing, it's incredibly expensive, especially when you compare it against a lot of its rivals, like the Subaru Forester or the Mazda CX-5. And not only is it much more expensive, but you're also going to get an SUV that's below average when it comes to long-term reliability and repair costs. Volkswagens in general just don't have a great reputation for long-term reliability in North America, especially past the warranty period. And the Tiguan is no exception, with a long history of having all kinds of serious electronic issues and engine issues. And when you do eventually have issues with them, they can be incredibly expensive to repair. So anyone thinking of buying a Tiguan for the long haul, thinking they're going to get a similar cost of ownership experience to something like a Toyota RAV4 or a Honda CR-V is going to be in for a huge surprise. So the best thing to do is just to pass on the Tiguan, because it's just not going to be worth it. So with that one out of the way, let's move on to number 7 on the list, which is the Ford Escape EcoBoost. Now, it's important to point out with this one that not all Ford Escapes are best to avoid. The Ford Escape Hybrid and Plug-in Hybrid, for example, are actually really good SUVs with impressive fuel economy and reliability. But unfortunately, that's not the case with the gas-powered Escapes, which use turbo engines from Ford's EcoBoost line. These engines have a long history of being extremely problematic, sometimes resulting in complete engine failure. The Escape is not an especially well-designed SUV when it comes to its interior, features, and technology. It also doesn't have the best resale value, and it's no less expensive than any of its rivals either, so there's really not a lot of value here for the money. So unless you're thinking of buying the hybrid or the plug-in hybrid, just scratch the Ford Escape off your list, because there are much better alternatives out there instead. Now, not all of the worst SUVs happen to come from North America or Europe. There are some from Asia as well, and number 6 on the list is proof of that, which is the Mitsubishi RVR or the Outlander Sport. Introduced all the way back in 2011, it was a decent SUV when it first hit the market, but it just hasn't aged very well over time, to the point where it's just not competitive at all. In terms of its interior, exterior, its engine performance, or its technology, the Outlander Sport, or the RVR as it's known in Canada, really just doesn't have much going for it. And although it does have a decent reputation for reliability, Mitsubishi ownership can still be a bit of a pain. Because they're such a small company and have a very small dealer network in North America, servicing them can be rather annoying. And they also have above average parts costs and service costs when compared to most of their rival brands. So unless you're getting an absolutely unbeatable price, just pass over this SUV altogether and go for one of its much better alternatives, like the Subaru Crosstrek or the Toyota Corolla Cross instead. And moving on to number 5 on the list, we have the Jeep Compass. The Compass is another one of those small SUVs that just doesn't offer very good value for your money. For one thing, the pricing of the Compass is incredibly high, often costing way more than most of its main rivals. Now, Jeep will have you believe that you're paying that price premium in order to get that off-road capability and that Jeep image. But let's be realistic, if you want an off-road Jeep, you're going to buy a Wrangler instead. The Compass is just another small crossover SUV, and when compared to any of its main rivals, it's just not a good choice. Its poor performance, below average reputation for reliability, and poor resale value are all reasons to scratch it off your shopping list. So again, if a small crossover SUV is what you're looking for, look at one of the much better alternatives on the market, like the Mazda CX-30, the Honda HR-V, or the Toyota Corolla Cross. And moving on to number 4, we have the Volkswagen Atlas. Much like the Tiguan, the Atlas is another one of those SUVs that you just don't want to bother with, especially if you're planning on buying one for the long haul. Since hitting the market back in 2018, it just hasn't developed a good reputation for reliability, which coming from Volkswagen is not a surprise. Consumer Reports often puts it near the very bottom of their annual reliability study. But not only is it known to be unreliable, but as with other Volkswagens out of warranty, it's also known to have very high repair costs too. So although it is similar to other 3-row SUVs from brands like Honda and Toyota, it is going to cost you a lot more money to keep one on the road, especially over a 10-year period. Now the Atlas does offer a lot of great features, and it does have a lot of interior space, especially in the 3rd-row seats and the cargo area too. But if you're looking for a 3-row SUV with a lot of interior space, you could also take a close look at the Honda Pilot, which has a much better reputation for long-term reliability. Or better yet, you can go with a minivan like the Honda Odyssey or the Toyota Sienna Hybrid, which are great choices too. But whatever you do, just forget about the Atlas because it's just not worth it. So let's move on to number 3 on the list, which is the Chevrolet Equinox and the GMC Terrain. Although they continue to be popular choices on the market, both the Equinox and the Terrain do have a troubled history when it comes to their reliability and cost of ownership. The previous generation models with the 2.4 Ecotec and 3.6-liter engines were known to be extremely problematic, with timing chain issues, oil consumption, and sometimes complete engine failure. And although the newer models are known to be more reliable than the ones that came before them, GM is not exactly a company that's known for its stellar reliability. And then you have a host of other issues with these SUVs, like below average fuel economy, below average resale value over the long haul, and just not being very competitive when it comes to performance, features, or interior quality. It's honestly pretty hard to come up with a few compelling reasons to choose an Equinox or a Terrain over its much better rivals, from brands like Mazda, Subaru, or Toyota. And even GM is planning on scrapping these SUVs altogether and introducing an all-new, all-electric Equinox for the 2024 model year, which should be a huge improvement. So until that time, if you're planning on buying a small crossover SUV, your best bet is just to buy something else instead. But whatever you do, don't buy number 2 on the list, which are the Chevrolet Traverse, Buick Enclave, and GMC Acadia. Much like the Equinox and the Terrain, all 3 of these 3-row SUVs are very similar underneath the skin, and all 3 are equally bad too. For one thing, these SUVs do not have a good reputation for long-term reliability, especially when it comes to the engines and transmissions. And not only are they known to be problematic in terms of repair costs, but they're also extremely expensive SUVs to buy, offering poor value when compared to most of their popular rivals. Poor value for money, below average reliability, and just general inferiority pretty much summarizes these GM SUVs. So if you want to buy a 3-row SUV, you're much better off buying one of the much better rivals instead. And that brings us to the final crossover SUV on this list, which is the Fiat 500X. Many might be surprised to know that the 500X is still even offered in the North American market, and really I was just as surprised as you. As far as small crossover SUVs go, the 500X has to be one of the absolute worst choices that you can buy. Its reputation for quality and reliability is well below average, especially as it ages past the warranty period. It also offers poor value with extremely high pricing that's way higher than most of its much better rivals. And it's just not a very good crossover. It doesn't excel in any particular area. And coming from Fiat, it's the only model left in the North American market, which in itself is a major problem too. You don't want to buy a vehicle that's a one-off, one-of-a-kind from a very small, obscure brand. It's just going to lead to repair issues and servicing and parts issues down the road too, which is something that you want to avoid. So whatever you do, if you're shopping for a crossover SUV, just avoid the Fiat 500X, because almost anything else will be a better choice. So there you have it, the 10 worst SUVs of 2023. Let me know what you thought of the vehicles on this list. And if you have any suggestions for any future car videos, just leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. You can also take a look at some of my other videos by checking out these links over here. Make sure to follow me on TikTok and Instagram. And if you need additional car buying advice, recommendations, or help with getting a great deal on your next new car purchase, make sure to check out carhelpcan.com. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.